All right, Ultimate Hoops Nation. I'm Aaron Wimsett. I'm here with Izzy Elkafas. We're gonna do predictions a little bit differently this week. We're gonna do them live. So tomorrow night's game in Fridley. First up, we have Callahan Auto Parts versus the Club. Both teams, actually, Callahan lost last week and the Club won. Callahan lost by 1, I believe, right?
Yeah.
And the Club beat UOENO pretty handily. Your thoughts on that game?
Well, Callahan obviously need to show up with more than 5. They have 5 of the same players they had last season. They lost Pat and Steve Hart, and they need to replace both those guys. They're going to show up with somebody. We just don't know who it is. So the jury's still out. The Club, on the other hand, actually looked pretty good. Now, I wasn't there, but from what I showed up at the very end, so I saw the last 10 minutes, and they had already been up by 20-plus points. Maybe they're onto something here. I know they added a guy named Devin and a guy named William. Devin looked like he had a good game. I think he had 17 points. So I need to watch them more extensively to really see how those two pieces fit into that puzzle. But the Club they're a team that's really frustrating to play against because they all run up and down the court. They play very pickup style type of basketball. Now with Callahan, it's a little different because they're a little bit long in the tooth. I mean, Chase is a workhorse, but Emmanuel sometimes gets lazy. That's always been my critique on him. He's just sometimes gets a little lazy, and Goody's gonna have to get his track shoes on, especially if they show up with 5 again. So I want to pick the Club here, and I will pick the Club just based on the fact that the way that the Callahan's roster is right now, and the fact that the Club will pick up the tempo. I don't think Callahan can keep up. So I'm gonna roll with the Club on this one, barring 2 really good players they show up with. So I'm gonna say the Club win, and I'm gonna say they win by 9.
Okay. How does the Club? I think their biggest player is Xavier. How does the Club match up with Kevin?
Well, it's gonna be frantic style basketball. So if they can beat Callahan down the court, which they will, they'll not only wear him out, but Kevin's only one man. Sure, he's a big man, but he can't cover the entire paint when the ball goes up and there's a rebound. Xavier's got a big base, so he can at least do a pretty good job of boxing out. Xavier's another player that sometimes he gets lazy, especially if he doesn't get the ball. So it'll be interesting to see how they're going to approach Kevin Chase, but I think they'll have enough pieces to kind of offset his probably 15-20 rebounds he's going to have tomorrow.
So Club by 9. Next game we have the Killer Bees and the Players Club. Both teams are 1-0. Kind of 2 surprise teams from last year. They both looked pretty good and made the playoffs. What are your thoughts on that game?
Well, the Bees beefed up, literally, with Twan. He's been eating some extra beef jerky, I think. He's just getting stronger. So that's a tough team. You roll Twan out there, and you bring Mike on with a pretty good core already, with Jerry and Abdi and Andre Gray. The thing is with Abdi, he had his fast. He went 2 for 15. Now he has about 0.1% body fat, so this fast might put him in negative percentage in body fat, and it shows in his box scores. So if he can get, I don't think he'll be able to eat a meal. I think it'll be a 7 o'clock game, so he's going to be completely out of steam there. So unless he wakes up in the morning, eats a lot of carbs, you can pretty much count Abdi for another 2 for 15 performance. So let's assume he's out. They're going to feed the beast, Twan, hopefully, and just let him work down low and have Mike and Andre Gray crash the boards. Now, if Twan does what he did today and kind of just stand in one spot and expect to get the ball, it's not going to happen. So he's going to have to work, for his cookies, and he's going to have to get position and kind of switch blocks, not just stand in one spot. And I don't think the Players Cup can really handle him. Brandon Hickson, I believe his name. He's a big body, but he's not Twan. So for looking at the teams, how they match up, I think the Killer Bees actually outmatch them in every aspect of the game besides three-point shooting. I think with Tony DeBoer, if he can get hot, he can really make that game, because obviously if he's probably good for about 5 threes. Now it depends on how efficient he is. So if he can make an efficient 5 for 8, 5 for 9, 5 for 10, Players Cup have a really good shot of winning that game. I think that they'll throw Michael Franklin on there. I would actually throw Andre Gray on him, and because Mike tends to get a little lost. But if they throw Andre Gray at him, make sure that he stays cold, Killer Bees will win that game. And I actually think that they will play a smart game, and I think they're going to win by about 13 or 14.
Okay. Next game, we got the new look Barracudas versus the new team in the league, the replacements. Both teams lost last week, I think around 15, 20 points. Kuda's new look, you think that the offense would play through Nick, and I think he only put up about 4 shots. Do you think that'll change this week?
Well, the other guy, Nick Johnson, I think
Matt Johnson?
Is it Matt Johnson? I think he took 25 shots, and I believe he went 7 of 25. So that's a lot of shots. Those are that's Kobe-esque, and he's not. I guess sometimes Kobe goes 7 for 25. So maybe he is. Maybe he's the best player in the league, and we just don't know about it. But based on last week, he's got to pass the ball. It's basically Travie Baby MVP in terms of shot attempts, but he's not Travie Baby MVP. So maybe we'll call him Matty Baby MVP depending on how good he is. If they play the way that they played last week, even the replacements will kill him. The replacements are a lot of the old guys from Bloomington. You got the Lure brothers, McComas. They had another game, Cam. I don't think he's ever played before. At least I don't remember him. He might be their best player. So they won't have any trouble with the Kudas. I think this will be a game for them to get kind of their legs back and to kind of get things going. So I expect the replacements to come out and they'll roll the Kudas, unless the Kudas, like you said, go through Nick Battaglia. He's quite underrated. He's a solid player. I just think he needs a little bit more confidence in himself, but the talent's there. So I think the Kudas, we might be a little bit premature in saying that their new look, I guess they are, but they're not necessarily improved yet. Jury's still out on them. So I'll give them another week, but I'm going to say replacements by 19.
Okay. Next game we have two, I guess not surprise, but two good teams that lost last week. We have UOENO versus the Huskies. I think the Huskies lost, they lost at a last-second shot, right?
Yeah.
And then UOENO, again, got beat pretty badly by the club. UOENO added Alex McLean, I think is his name. But he can dunk. He's got a pretty nice shot. Didn't show up. Do you think that UOENO will show up this game?
I don't know why they wouldn't. They're the same team. Now, if remind me again, who did Callahan lose to last week? I thought they lost to the Huskies.
Okay.
So the Huskies should.
So we have the 1-0 Huskies versus UOENO,
okay.
who's 0-1.
So the Huskies actually have a really interesting team. They added Q from them over to Fridley to play with Devin, and they have a team that could put together some wins. UOENO looked awful in that last 10 minutes, even when I showed up late. They just looked out of sorts, which is surprising. I think Sam was gone, and I think they went iron 5. And you had mentioned Alex McLean, but I thought Alex McLean is he a UOENO member?
I think he used to play for Players Club, if I'm correct. He's
so.
big.
It's going to be interesting to see. They need more than 5, obviously, to beat the Huskies, and I think they'll show up with more than 5. The problem is the Huskies got a big win last week in terms of momentum, and when you get crushed by 22 points or 23 points, whatever they lost by, you kind of start to doubt yourself. Now, Trevor Hazen's a great player, and he started making a lot of threes late in that game. That game could have been, a 30, 35-point blowout had he not made 3 or 4 threes at the end of that game late. the Huskies. Well, Devin got hurt today. He rolled his ankle and he was hobbling around for the last 20 minutes in that game. So if Devin's not around and they don't have that 3-point shooting, a lot of pressure is going to go on the other players. I still think they have enough to beat UOENO. So I'm going to roll with the Huskies here, and I'm going to roll with them close. I'm going to say 4.
Last game of the night, we have the Pigeons versus the Bucks. Pigeons, again, I wasn't there, but you were, of course, there. You guys lost last week. What went wrong?
Well, I went wrong. I think a lot of us, we just kind of struggled from the field. I know Pat Magnuson struggled. I struggled. Dustin was really the only one that was really efficient. Will's, he's not really a guy that's going to put up a lot of shots. Helmy did decently. Briggs wants me to highlight that he had a double-double.
I also heard that there was a fast break Briggs had, and you climbed up his back and blocked it, and no foul was called.
I pinned it into the backboard, and then my left testicle was on his shoulder, and then I pushed him onto the table, and I tucked the testicle back in, and I ran down the other side and missed a 3. So the Pigeons, it's kind of like a fob 5 with a couple guys pulled, from free agency, Will, and picked up Helmy. It'll be interesting to see how they can gel together, and I think there was some semblance of that in that game, and it was all not the Pigeons were up 53-52, and then they just stopped scoring, and the Avengers just went on a run and ended that game. They obviously won't have any trouble against the Bucks, assuming, unless Parker's on the team, but Jabari played 1 year of college, so he can't play. Maybe. So Pigeons will roll, obviously, but I don't think this game is a really good test for the Pigeons either. So if they win, it really does them no good to see how they've improved as a team. So it might be a few weeks out on them. But it'll be interesting to see what the Bucks roll out with. We just don't want hopefully these free agent teams don't just come out and just get rolled every week. It was nice to see that the free agents here pulled out a double-digit victory against the Vikings. So good stuff there. It'd be an interesting night. I think a lot of teams need to show up with a full roster, and it looks like Fridley's going to be a little weak this season. I just don't. The Killer Bees look kind of scary with their roster, but other than that, the Avengers are the best team by far, and I think the Killer Bees might be second. Club might be third, and it's just not a very powerful, top of the league. So it'll be interesting to see what's added.
All right, that's predictions. We'll see everybody next week.